Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted in person and as a courtesy via remote means in accordance with applicable law. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public and board members, the meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless required by law. This meeting will be recorded by the local scene, formerly known as pac-tv. Members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so by viewing the Duxbury Government Access channels, Verizon 39 or Comcast 9. Viewers can visit thelocalscene.media/Duxbury for more information about Duxbury programming, including streaming and watching replays on Duxbury YouTube. With that, I call this meeting to order, and the first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is open forum. If anybody has any open forum items that they'd like to place on a future agenda, they may go to the podium, but I will start with the select board first. Does anybody have items that they would like in the future? Go ahead.
Two things on MBTA communities updates since we last met. The first is the Executive Office of Housing and Community Development has formally denied our extension request. You may recall the select board through the town manager made a 12-month extension request that was formally denied in writing. The town has posted the denial letter to the MBTA Communities Working Group website if anybody cares to see it, with all the reasons supporting their decision. Second, the MBTA Communities Working Group held a public forum last Thursday at the DHS DMS auditorium. It was well attended. Steve, Tag, and Allison gave a presentation that was similar to what was presented at the joint FinCom Select Board meeting. It was very well attended, lots of questions, and I think it was very informative for all. Finally, I participated in early voting today. You might be admiring the sticker that I have on my lapel.
I'm wondering what it was.
I hadn't done early voting today. I just wanted to share it was very easy. No line, in and out, and I wanted to acknowledge that Susan Kelly, our town clerk, had put together a I Voted sticker contest that I think she had mentioned last time she was here.
That's right.
But there was Claire from Chandler, Charlotte from Alden, and Amanda from DMS are all finalists on the sticker contest, and their stickers are all available once you vote. You get to sport one of these.
Who did yours?
So this is Amanda's from DMS.
All right.
Nice job.
Yeah, I wasn't greedy. I was thinking of getting all three, but I only took one. But go and get yours. Vote early. It was very easy.
You know, you can't vote 3 times, Brian.
That's right. That's right.
Chicago. Did you have something, Amy?
You done, Brian?
I'm done. Thank you.
Yes, I wanted to follow up on the, I was hoping to see it in our packet this evening, and maybe you're going to bring it up under the town manager report, but I was hoping to see the creation of the bridge committee. I think that is important. I'm hoping to get the consensus of the board this evening to direct the town manager to get that going. I think that time is of the essence, and I think it's something that we really need to get going on. So
yeah, just so you know, I did take a look. I just don't have the information ready tonight. We have too many other things ahead of us.
Could I get the consensus of the board so that we could move that
It
forward?
it is during the open forum. I will reiterate, and I think Rainey heard this the last time I asked for it as well, and I know other people have asked for it, but if anybody has any concerns about it, rather than breaking meeting law here, please let Rainey know it. I think we should just do this, and I think Rainey's agreeable to it, so.
Yeah, I've already started drafting a charge.
I think we need to, because Facebook is already taken over.
Yeah, well, that's.
Blowing up.
All right, it is 6:35. We have a fee hearing scheduled for 6:35 regarding EV charging stations. It's a discussion and vote pertaining to town electrical vehicle charging stations and proposed implementation of fees for service. This will be presented by Mary McKinnon, our finance director.
I move that the select board open the public hearing regarding proposed fees for the town of Duxbury's EV charging stations.
Okay.
Propose a roll call vote.
May I have a roll call vote?
Fernando, aye.
Brian, aye.
Michael, aye.
Amy, aye.
Cindy, aye.
Okay.
It appears the fiscal advisory committee voted 5-0-0 in support of this proposed fee.
Thank you. Do you want to present?
Of course I
McKinnon.
do. But before I start, I just want to make sure that you all have a handout in your packet that looks like this.
Yes.
And there are some subsequent charts. Perfect. Okay, so using that information, let me start by saying that I am here to propose implementing fees for our electric vehicle charging stations. As you recall, we have a station located here behind Town Hall and one located over at the Percy Walker Pool. 2 pedestals with a total of 4 charging stations. This topic has been a topic of conversation over the last year of wanting to initiate some sort of fee structure, and it certainly gained some momentum during the Sustainable Budget Task Force meetings that were held over the summer as we looked for opportunities to generate revenue and cover our costs. So with that being said, tonight I'm here to propose to implement a fee structure for those charging stations. If you flip to the second page, I'm going to walk you through the data analysis that the group had compiled and how we landed on our recommendation for this evening. So a couple months ago, back in, I believe it was either April or May of this year, we convened a group that included the building inspector, the facilities director, the town's energy manager, myself, and the treasurer collector to review the issues with activating a fee structure. We took a look at our costs, basically our sunk costs that we have incurred since the inception of bringing these charging stations online. And if you look at that top chart on the second page, you'll see that back in early 2022 was when we installed these charging stations, and the initial startup cost was about, all told, $22,000. I will tell you that these charging stations are very, very expensive, and at the time that they were implemented, the town had received rebates through the utility companies and through state grants. I will also tell you that those rebates have since dried up. So what we took advantage of a few years ago at the time when this was a very popular notion for municipalities, the town took advantage, as did a number of other communities. However, those rebate programs that were being pushed by the utility companies at that time are no longer available for this type of program.
Can I ask about those sunk costs? Were those rebated, the $22,000?
No, they were not. That was out of pocket.
None of that was rebated.
You are not seeing anything in here that was rebated. These are total out-of-pocket costs. So
I'm sorry,
since
Mary,
then,
I'm just sorry. I'm confused. So their actual cost was higher, and then some of those were rebated. Is that what you're saying?
that is true. It essentially, the rebate reduced the cost that the town paid. So it was a net. And when I get to the end and we talk about the cost of these pedestals, you'll understand. Okay? So since 2022, the town has operated these charging stations and provided electricity to consumers free of charge. You can see in 2022, 23, and 24, I am showing the cost of electricity both at the town hall charging station as well as at the pool charging station. In addition to the cost of electricity, we have also incurred other costs. The first couple of years of the installation of these devices, the software that is utilized for these, essentially the portal, was provided free of charge, but in 2024 that changed, and the first 2 years were free, and now the town is paying $3,400, a little over $3,400 for the cost of the software to operate the 2 devices, as well as for the data analytics and billing software. In addition to that, in 2024, the town has incurred $2,500 worth of repair fees. There was a person who was charging their car who drove off with the hose plugged into their car.
I didn't think you could do that. My
And
won't let you do that.
we have been on the hook for repairs. There were also additional repairs in fiscal '25, which I have not chased down the cost yet, of cracked screens on the display itself. So now that the machines are here, we own them. So we are responsible for the repair, the maintenance, and the upgrade, as well as the cost of electricity. So all told, since the inception of installing these meters, the town has incurred costs well in excess of $60,000. Up through fiscal '24, when this chart was prepared, it was $62,815. So With that being said, the goal and the objective is to cover our costs and to also generate some additional funding to cover repairs, maintenance, and cover the software costs. So with that being said, we took a look at the rates being charged in surrounding communities as well as across the state. And so if you look at that second chart, you'll see those rates per kilowatt, as well as idle time charges and the various options that folks are charging for idle time. The idea behind the idle time charge is that we would like to see faster turnover. So when people have completed their charge, rather than leaving their car there for hours and hours, that there would be a incentive to move your vehicle faster. So what happens with these charge sessions is that a person would connect to the charging session. The software would recognize the vehicle as well as the start time of the session, and when the session is completed, the person would be notified either via email or text, whichever notification method they prefer, to let them know that their charging session is complete, and they would have 15 minutes to come and retrieve their vehicle before the idle time additional surcharge would kick in. So with that being said, our current demand right now is that the town is supplying 200 kilowatts per day, which averages somewhere in the vicinity of 7 kilowatts per hour, and the machines are charging for about 14 hours a day. So with that volume in mind, if you flip to the next page, there are two charts shown on the next page. The top chart is using the current utilization rates that we have today, basically the volume of folks who are using it, the number of kilowatts that we are providing free of charge. And we analyzed various price points as we looked at the surrounding communities, also looked at covering our own costs and trying to come up with a recommended option. So what you will see is rate number 3 is highlighted in gray, and we focused on rate number 3 in both scenarios. But the box at the top is with the current utilization rate, and the box at the bottom is assuming that if we implement a fee structure, that there will be a drop-off in demand. And so it is assuming a reduction of 40% in demand using those two rate structures. So what we're looking at is proposing a 47-cent fee per kilowatt hour per charge, as well as an $8 idle time charge. And so in option number 1, if you look at that and assume that there will be no reduction in demand after the introduction of fees, that would generate about $32,000 to $33,000 in estimated revenue. However, it's unlikely that the demand or the volume would be sustainable. So if you look at the second option, using the same fee structure of 47 cents per kilowatt hour, as well as the $8 idle charge, and if you look at those are fairly conservative estimates where we're assuming that there may be one incident per day where an idle charge would be assessed. Using that rate structure, that would generate approximately $24,000 in revenue with the rate structure at 47 cents. Knowing that our expenses in fiscal '24 have come in at $22,000, this is just over break even, assuming the reduction in volumes. With that being said, I also want to bring to the board's attention that in the course of the work of this committee, we have also met with some consultants to answer some questions. And what we learned was that the cost of those pedestals, so that technology that we have is now a few years old. And so now the utility companies and energy companies are pushing better, faster technology with these charging stations. But the cost of those pedestals range anywhere from $75,000 to $150,000 each. So if we were to, so when we talk about back to the startup costs, those pedestals were much more expensive than the $22,000. Our out-of-pocket cost after the rebates and electrical services and connection fees came to just over the $22,000. So I just want the board to bear in mind that the cost of these units is extremely expensive, and we now own them. We are on the hook for repairs and maintenance and whatever happens to them in the future. So with that being said, I'm asking the board to support a fee structure of 47 cents per kilowatt and an $8 per hour idle fee charge after the first 15 minutes of charging. Yes, sir.
So basically, we're just covering our costs, right? In 5 years, 10 years' time, somewhere between there, we'll be faced a choice of, do we continue providing that service, or do we and fork out $100,000 to replace it, assuming costs stay around there, or we actually shut it down, right?
Correct.
So we are not charging enough to build a pot there to pay off and offset some of the costs for replacing
Not
these
yet.
units.
Not yet. So in my memo, I did say that we would be reviewing this once we've gathered at least 6 months' worth of data. And we may need to get onto a future fee hearing on the regular schedule. So this is a little off-cycle because we would like to implement this sooner rather than later. But the idea would be that we would evaluate this after we've collected about 6 months' worth of data to see what the reduction in volume has been.
Right. We discussed this at the Sustainable Budget Task Force, right?
Exactly.
And
Correct.
as a source of revenue for the town,
Correct.
and after discussion, we agreed that this wasn't, we're not a gas station, right, as a town.
We are not, it is not a service that we are required to provide,
Yeah.
no. And the fact that we're providing over $60,000 worth of free electricity when that could be used for something else
Correct.
is
Yep.
part of what's behind this, yes.
Go ahead, Amy.
First, we are a green community. We all made that choice at town meeting, and I think that we should cover the costs of this. I think that that's completely appropriate. I think it would be worth explaining, because I think maybe somebody who doesn't understand how this works may be thinking that to collect the fees is going to cost the town, if somebody were to be collecting these fees or monitoring this, but I think it's worth explaining that the charge point, somebody who doesn't do this doesn't know that, it's all done through an app, and you pay, you connect to charge point, and that will bill, I'm assuming, bill the consumer directly. So the town won't incur costs to administer.
That's incorrect.
That's incorrect.
That is
Okay, that's why
incorrect.
I'm hoping to ask this question. So
That
maybe
is
you could
incorrect. The
explain
town
that.
has, what you're not seeing in that expense structure is any administrative costs. So if you think about the repairs that we have to do, so the town had to spend time finding a repair person, coordinating that repair, making sure that it got done. Once the fee structure is in place, there's billing and collections. So in order for the town to receive their funding, that's a deposit that has to come in. So this requires the involvement of the treasurer collector to establish the credit card processing point of sale, as well as all of the required reporting for the deposits, so that the town receives their funds in order to pay their bills.
Okay, so that being said, you've looked at that and still these numbers make sense? The cost to administer this it still makes sense with these numbers that you're proposing?
That is correct. We are starting this program, and again, we're going to reevaluate it within 6 months to determine the feasibility and determine where the volumes are, because we may need to raise the prices at that point.
The problem comes when the unit fails, and then we need to make a decision as a town whether we spend $100,000 or so to replace it.
Cindy, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to say that I'm glad that we're going to be looking at it again in 6 months. I have absolutely no issue with recouping costs and putting money aside for repairs, but I would not like to see this as a source of revenue for the town, as an outside the cost of this to the town. I would disagree at us making money on it. Again,
It has to
what-
factor in future costs as
Future
well.
costs.
well, future costs and future repairs and that sort of stuff. I don't have any.
That's-
When this unit fails
reasonable.
in 10 years' time, right, in 5 years' time, we're going to face with the decision whether we fork out $100,000 to replace it, right?
Yeah, well,
So-
to that question, is it going to a fund, a revolving fund, or is it going to the general fund?
So at your last meeting, you guys voted to support the creation of an electric vehicle charging station revolving fund at the
Okay.
upcoming town
Okay.
meeting.
Great,
All right.
okay.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
that
I do remember that,
answers-
but I mean, I heard Fernando say, source of revenue, and I don't
No, it's not supposed to.
agree with
not.
that.
No, for clarification, not a source, that we're not here to make money, is that we need to, in 10 years' time or 5 years' time, when these things go
That's
obsolete,
fine.
like
Yeah,
a
no, I
computer,
understand. Yeah.
we must put enough money aside if we want to continue to cover the costs.
Yeah.
That's going to be the big question. If we don't do that, then we'll be faced with a decision to make this board in 5 years' time. Do we
Yeah.
spend $100,000 to replace these units or what? So that's the decision we'll be faced in the future if we don't put enough money aside.
Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did look through all this over the weekend. It was very helpful. I did some independent research as well, and I see that there are some communities that do peak pricing, off-peak pricing, that sort of thing. And I don't know that we need to get into this. It's a long way of saying I think the numbers that you're proposing here are reasonable based upon the market and also appropriate to cover our expenses. I do have a concern, however, that we're in this business at all.
Correct.
I don't think that the municipality, any municipality, frankly, but certainly not Duxbury, should be in the business of transportation fuel, so to
Correct.
speak. I know we did this as a pilot. I presume we get some sort of grant or whatever to roll this out in the first place. But I wouldn't be supportive of the town providing this as the town going forward for the reasons that we heard about maintenance and upkeep. We should have them, for sure, but I just don't think that the town ought to be in the business. So whether we do a competitive bid of providers who are going to, at their own expense, provide the electricity, provide the facilities, and in that case, we can make a decision as to whether we break even or if it's revenue. But that way, that the town is not, we're allowing, because we are green, we're allowing the facility to exist, maybe on town property, but in terms of us being involved, and I know that's not the question for tonight, but I would raise that as an issue, because I would not be supportive of that as a long-term issue.
I know that there's members of the Finance Committee here. We did have a vote. We got a vote from the Fiscal Advisory, and I know you're not in a quorum, but does anybody wish to speak on this at all?
Betsy Sullivan. It's just that we are in no way, shape, and form are we supportive of us providing this service to the community at a loss. So, set your fee, cover the costs, and as the technology and the need develops, then this is something that you can revisit. It costs $150,000 now. Who knows what it's going to cost in 2 years? So, let's just get this monkey off our back when we determined that it was costing us, it had cost us $60,000. We were not delighted. That's all I'll say.
Yep. Thank you very much. I will only add if the percentage of drop-off isn't that big, I would hope that we could maybe keep it closer to this, like, South Shore average, because there are people that are going to be there's a lot of electric cars in town. I don't know if they have ports at home and things of that nature. But if we can get it lower, if we see less of a drop-off, that's something I would like to see. I do want to meet our costs here, but I'm not looking for a windfall, certainly.
Okay.
I will take a vote.
One more question,
Go ahead.
based on Brian's comment, because I think we're all in agreement that, and I don't think any of us want to be in this business. Have we had any outside interest in taking over those charging stations, or?
No.
No.
Okay. So we didn't look into that instead of getting into this whole administrative end of dealing with this, we could have transitioned right into that had we.
Well, just so you know, if you think about the procurement process, I mean, that's protracted and takes months. Every month we're incurring costs, so the sooner we start to cover those costs, the better.
Do any other towns put it out for bid?
I have
You
no
know,
idea.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
No, a whole bunch of towns all got in on this green community thing, and it was pretty exciting at first. Hey, you get a free charging station, and then the rent comes due, and then it isn't as attractive.
Okay. All right. Take a motion.
I move that the Select Board approve the recommended EV, electric vehicle, fee of 47 cents per kilowatt hour per charging station, plus an idle time fee of $8 per hour after a 15-minute grace period as presented, with the fees effective November 1st, 2024.
Second.
All those in favor, is roll call vote, please.
Redondo, aye.
Brian, aye.
Michael, aye.
Amy, aye.
Cindy, aye.
I move that the Select Board close the public hearing regarding the proposed fee charges for the town's EV charging stations.
All those in favor, roll call vote, please.
Fernando, aye.
Brian, aye.
Michael, aye.
Amy, aye.
Cindy, aye.
Now we have,
I'm happy to go at the end.
okay. I'm going
That's
to,
going to take a little bit.
yeah, we have a couple of people that are, we have consultants, we also have an attorney on the line. too.
Exactly.
Okay.
So is Sharon, are you there?
There she is.
What-
For Zanetti. She's here for Zanetti.
She here for
Yeah, she's here for
Zanetti?
Zanetti and the layout too, right?
No.
If she's not on there, Sharon, are you on?
I am.
Okay, great. I'm going to step away. I just want to alert the public. I live next door to Mr. Zanetti. I do not have an actual conflict here. I do not in any way gain anything from this easement or lose anything from this easement. But in the appearance of conflict, I'm going to step away from this discussion.
Bye, Mike.
Thank you.
Bye, Mike.
I'll be back in.
So this easement is between the town of Duxbury and abutters Kenneth and Linda Zanetti at 894 Tremont Street, as the town has long used a portion of their property for pedestrian and vehicular access to and from Tremont Street and the DPW buildings. This will enable the town to have continued use of the easement area for pedestrian and vehicular access, as well as access to and maintenance of underground utilities under the easement area. So Attorney Sharon, or Attorney Everett is here to speak to this. You there, Sharon?
She is.
Yeah, sorry. Good evening, and thank you for having me here. As you know, this is an easement that the town has been negotiating with Mr. and Ms. Zanetti. It covers approximately half acres of the Zanetti property, and it gives the town permanent rights of access and utilities for the Zanetti's property. The town negotiated a purchase price of $40,000 for the easement, which was approved by town meeting, and we were waiting on all this while for Mr. Zanetti to obtain subordination of his mortgage. That subordination has been obtained and recorded, and we are now ready to proceed with recording the easement before we review.
Thank you. And all the terms and conditions are the same as before. Nothing has changed, we've just been waiting.
That's correct. We've been waiting all this while for the subordination. There is an associated agreement that goes with the easement agreement, and that is the payment agreement, which I can discuss or Steve can discuss.
Who was the other option to discuss?
Steve's not here.
Oh,
Steve
okay.
Dunn.
So why don't you discuss it? Steve isn't here.
So since the town has an easement, a permanent easement over almost half an acre of Mr. Zanetti's property, and given that he does not use that access way at all, Mr. Zanetti requested that the easement area be assessed at a lower value, because in essence, he does not use that property and is solely for the town's benefit. Mr. Zanetti and I, we spoke with Steve, with the assessor's office, and Steve will tell you that he already, because the town has always used that portion of the property, that the taxes have been minimal, if anything. So what Mr. Zanetti would like is a deed agreement that we sign, agreeing that the half-acre property will, in essence, be debated completely. And I believe the amount is minimal.
Yeah.
It
was de minimis.
To the assessment.
Okay, so So there was a slight change. In addition to the payment for the easement, there is the abatement of taxes moving forward.
That's correct. There are always two payments, which is the compensation for the easement and the abatement.
Could we have one conversation? Sorry. Thank you, Sharon. Did you have something to add, Rainey? Is that?
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is the first that I'm hearing of this being proposed in front of the Select Board, which is surprising to me because the town, through a town meeting vote, authorized a $40,000 payment for the easement. And if we are asking for an abatement on top of that, that is additional compensation for the use of this property. And my conversations with our assessor about a year ago, and they were preliminary, were that he was not in support of this. So I'm surprised that this is being brought forth without some additional internal review.
Sharon, any insight on that comment?
It says Steve Dunn.
Steve Dunn is our assessing director.
Yeah, it says Steve Dunn raised.
Oh, he
hand.
raised his hand.
Oh, is-
He is
oh.
here.
He is here. Where's Steve Dunn?
Steve, can you hear us?
It just seems strange that we're going to debate this in public.
There you go.
Well, here we
Hi,
go.
Steve, can you hear us?
Not yet, he's muted.
You're on mute, Steve.
And
There you go. Hi,
thanks
Steve.
for recognizing me, folks.
Hi, Steve.
How you doing?
Good. So, did you hear the conversation?
Right. The thing is on Mr. Zanini's property, there's .478 of an acre that is this easement. And that would represent $1,280 of value to his property. And you've taken that value off of the card. And just said, okay, this easement is being totally used by the town, and that is a loss in tax to the town of $12.88.
Got it.
Certainly makes sense that it would be abated if the town's using 100% of it.
Right.
It's really not an abatement. You're gonna see it on the card, which is part of the package. You'll see that it just has zero value, so it's not gonna be anything that's gonna come out of the whole thing.
Any questions from the board? Are you good?
Yeah, no, I'm glad that Steve jumped on.
Thank you.
So it's $12, then that's okay.
But this is a necessary, this easement is a necessary component to the entire DPW project.
Right.
Exactly.
And the easement will run with the deed, so that will be in place for the long term. And we will forgive $12 a year in taxes for the use
So
of
it's
the
$40,000 and
easement.
$12 a year.
Okay.
We'll pass the hat on.
Further discussion? Does anyone from the public have any comment? I'll take a vote.
Oh, no, wait a minute, they are.
Oh, JR.
No, I gotta say, that the town.
You gotta go up.
You
there.
gotta
Yeah.
I don't have an issue with the dollars or anything, but it's, the town voted $40,000. They didn't vote 40,000 and then 12 a year or whatever. I just don't know if it's legal, that's all. And
The abatement's separate and distinct from the town meeting action for the $40,000 for the lease.
But Steve's pointing out that it's not really an abatement. Does the terminology matter here? And we do have our lawyer on if we need to.
That's a reduction in value.
Are we on good, solid legal ground here, Sharon?
Yes, I do.
And Steve, if it's not really an abatement, what are we're just adjusting the value of the land. Is that correct?
100%.
Okay.
There you go.
Further questions? I'll take a vote. I'll take a motion.
I move that the Select Board accept and approve the easement agreement and the agreement on assessment of easement area by and between Kenneth R. Zanetti and Linda A. Zanetti of 894 Tremont Street and the town of Duxbury as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. All right.
Great.
We'll let our chair come back.
We're we going now? Cooper Hill?
Thank you, Sharon, and thank you, Steve. Although Sharon may be here for the next.
Thank you. Do we need Sharon for the layout? Because if not, I'm just skip over it.
It's been discussed at
It's been
length.
Cooper
discussed.
Hill, I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to skip over it and we'll jump.
We'll
All
just-
right.
Tell her that we don't need her to stay.
We're good, Sharon. Thank you very much.
Sharon, you're all set. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Steve.
DPW building update.
Yeah, Steve, are you all right? Are you all right if we skip over you, you get somewhere to be or anything?
Whatever you guys.
I know you're off the clock, so,
No, doesn't matter.
all
What
right.
is his, oh, that's going to be so quick.
It's quick. Yeah, just
Is the Ellison Fund
super
quick?
quick,
Was it a
yeah.
quick?
Accepting it.
Okay. Let's go do a discussion regarding the Ellison Fund distribution. Steve Studley, our Recreation Director, is here. Thank you very much, Steve.
Sure, thank you. Steve Studley, Recreation Director. In 1990, the town accepted a gift from Mr. Ellison where he donated money, which the treasurer invests annually. Each fiscal year, we get the amount that the return is on that, and we use those funds. Half of it's used for the Ellison Playgrounds, the other half for a Worthy Town project. I typically work with Jim Savonin, and we come up with a list of projects to which we present to the trustees, Steve Carlton and Matt Walsh. After that discussion takes place, they select the top choice. We do prioritize them, but they select the appropriate town-worthy project, and that's what this money is used for. This year's projects, actually, the Worthy Town project is also going to be used at the Ellison Playground. If you're familiar with the Ellison Playground next to the library, inside that playground, there's a huge tree, which really gives the playground character as well as provides great shade. Jim Savonin was able to get us a quote, a little over $3,000, to fertilize, treat the soil, pesticide, and do some natural pruning. It's a really high tree, bigger than our scale of work. So that would be part of it. The other part is to start to install in phases the poured rubber surface for ADA compliant pathways. To do the whole area, an unofficial quote of about $400,000 to $450,000 to do all of it. However, meeting with playground installers, we came up with a pretty good plan, I believe, and we're going to do it in phases. And this money that would be about another $40,000 to finish off the $43,000 we were given would be to get us from it's about 150 linear feet. It's a 6-foot 6-inch wide path from the entrance of the playground to the first major structure that takes you right to where the handicap accessible area is on that structure. The second phase would be from that structure to the other major structure in there that also takes you to the handicap accessible area for that. Those two paths would be our first step in trying to add rubberized poured rubber to as much as the playground as possible. We currently use wood 5R chips, which technically are ADA compliant. We are still in compliance. However, honestly, in my opinion, seeing people down there, the poured rubber is just a much easier ride for seeing kids in wheelchairs down there. The wood chips, although you can get them there, it's not as easy as the poured rubber, and to me it's a no-brainer. You look around the state and actually around the country, poured rubber is the way to go, and it still is, the impact zone is still compliant. So in my opinion, it's a really great cause this year, and I'm just asking the board to accept the gift as the trustees have voted to accept.
Any questions from the board?
No,
Sounds great.
no, it sounds good, yeah.
Just, I know it's something Amy's asked about with the fields. If we could just assure where we source this rubber from, that it doesn't include PFAS.
100%.
Let's keep it out of our
Absolutely.
soils.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, and be mindful of the pesticides you're using on the trees. I kind of had a little shiver there when you mentioned that one.
But thank you very much. This is an excellent project. I will take a motion.
Thank
I
you.
move that the Select Board recommend a total expenditure of $43,218 from the Eben H. Ellison Trust Fund for the following: $3,155 for the maintenance and upkeep of the Ellison Playground, which I believe is the tree, right? And then $40,063 to be allocated toward the restoration or replacement of the rubber pathways at the Ellison Playground.
All- Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I did.
Thank you very much, Steve. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's pop right over to the DPW. We have some folks here.
Pop, pop,
We
pop, huh?
are going to be getting a DPW building update. Mr. Alberti is going to be leading that discussion. If you'd introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Alberti. I'm with Weston and Sampson. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you again this evening. And I'm going to make sure our electronics are working here. And they are. Excellent. So I know we've met with you many times on this project, and we've prepared another update and have been active in working on this project and looking for cost control measures. But I thought it would be good to start with just a brief summary about the project history since we began the design part, which was just immediately following the March 2022 appropriation of $26.4 million. So that appropriation was made based on a feasibility study that was completed in 2021. And from there, when we received the appropriation, we began the process of starting the design process. So the design process, as you know, follows, it's a lengthy process, and it follows several steps, including schematic design, design development, and then through to construction documents before you're able to bid it and get actual quotes from contractors. But as we began that process in November of 2022, when we finished that first phase, the schematic design phase, we had an independent cost estimate done, and that's when we realized that we had a significant increase in cost for the project. We came back to the select board in November, presented those costs, talked a little bit about the factors associated with that, primarily due to what we would refer to as very high historic escalation factors that were a result of the post-pandemic market conditions. Following that meeting, we got direction to go back with the design team and the committee and the DPW to work on advancing the design with cost control measures. That was a process that was very intensive, constantly looking for cost control measures, all the while fighting that cost escalation that exists out there today. Ultimately, we finished those design documents, and instead of just relying on estimates, we went forward, put it out to bid in April of 2024. We received bids in June 2024. When it came to the last select board meeting, we talked about the results, which confirmed that the project costs are still over the $26.4 million. And there, you can see the number there, $30.9 million, which included the bid alt canopy. So from that meeting, we immediately began the process of, again, looking through, we called them value engineering. I think we all agreed that these were cost-cutting, cost control measures. So we really worked hard to come up with additional cost control measures. We revised the drawings based on recommendations from the committee, from the DPW. We put that back out on the street on October 9th, and then we're expecting bids on November 13th. So these will be hard numbers. These won't be based on estimates. They won't include contingencies within the design. It'll be hard numbers from a contractor. And based on those results, the intent would be to go to the November 18th special town meeting and request any additional funds at that meeting based on those bid results. So that's the last few years, really summed up at a high level, but I just thought it'd be important to kind of just revisit that. So one of the other questions that we heard from some of the prior meetings was, what is it that the town has paid for to date? What work has been completed? And certainly this is just one slide, but I wanted to touch on it at a high level. Number one, when you're going through and designing a vertical construction project of this magnitude, there's a significant amount of design effort that's required in order to actually go forward and publicly bid the job. Starts first with your intensive field investigations. That's everything from survey to geotechnical subsurface investigations to underground environmental investigations, as well as hazardous building materials and infiltration testing for the stormwater and for septic. Using that information and based on the program, we went through and we prepared the design documents. So the design documents are prepared in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 149. And as part of that, you're not just building one design for one contractor. You generally have a general contractor that's going to ultimately provide the final price, but within that you have the file sub-bid law. You actually have to design within that contract each of those categories. There's 12 other categories like masonry, HVAC, plumbing. So we prepared all those contract documents in accordance with the General Laws, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 149. We use that information, the design documents, to go through and permit the project. So we received approval from the Zoning Board of Appeals as well as the Planning Board. And then throughout that process, we had project coordination meetings on average twice a week, but sometimes every week, depending on the demands of the project. And that was with the owner's project manager, with the DPW, the building committee. And then all of that assembles into those bid documents that I talked about earlier that we put out on the street in June and again this October. And that generally consists of about 244 drawings, and that's for all of those trades. And that's for civil site, structural, architectural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and industrial engineering, as well as 2,500 pages of technical specifications. So all of this is required by the Massachusetts General Laws in order to advance a project to public bidding, as we've done. Just wanted to highlight some of that work that's been included through that process. So, as I mentioned earlier, after we received those June bids and we came and met with the Select Board, we immediately went back and began looking for additional cost control measures. And this was something that was carried out with the design team, with the owner's project manager, and the DPW committee. And we identified a total of 18 cost control measures, which we feel do not negatively impact the building or the DPW operations. And a lot of thought went into each of these, with the goal of trying to control costs as best we can through this process. And I just wanted to walk through and touch on some of these. The first being confirming that the native soils that are going to be removed from the site are in fact clean. We talked a little bit about the process, which typically is to excavate that material, test it, then determine where it would move, where it would go from there. We felt that that was potentially adding costs, potential disposal costs, that contractors didn't have that information. So we took that yellow shaded area and we broke that down into grids, and we went out and we put in 7 test pits, and we grabbed samples from every soil layer. We tested all those for environmental purposes, and all of those samples came back clean. So not to be unexpected because of it is native material, but we just wanted to go forward and confirm that, and that was a benefit to the overall project. The next item was we took a look at the retaining wall that exists in the original design. So you can see that red line, that thick red line, represents the area of the retaining wall. You can see an example photograph below. Part of that retaining wall helps to reduce the amount of excavation, but now that we know that that soil is clean and it actually has a value because of its native nature and the fact that it is environmentally clean, we're able to eliminate that retaining wall and just increase the slope slightly. So now we have a natural vegetated slope, save costs on the overall retaining wall. We also looked at the salt storage structure. So the original design, you can see the salt storage structure on the top with the red arrow, had a cast-in-place concrete wall, which is shown in an example in the bottom of the screen. That's a process that's used to increase the storage capacity of your salt shed. We're able to modify our salt shed and ultimately use a precast concrete block system, and that's shown here. It's a very common and popular precast concrete block system for the salt shed, and still meet the storage needs of the DPW while saving costs on construction material. Another real big focus was to see if we could improve the conditions of the site, meaning right now the way that it was set up is we had 2 phases. We were kind of splitting the site in the middle, and we had phase 1 that's to the upper part of the screen and phase 2 to the lower part of the screen. So those buildings in green, those would remain operational at the existing site until phase 1 is completed. Then you'd have operations move over to phase 1, demo those buildings, begin phase 2. This was adding time and also complexities to just getting the utilities in. And so through this process, we were able to work with the DPW and come up with an alternate phasing plan where we could relocate a portion of the operations, circled here in red in the bottom right, that would allow us to demo that building in phase 1, thereby increasing the overall area that the contractor could work in, and that in turn would simplify the construction activities and help to reduce the overall construction schedule. We all got down to some of the details. We took a look at some of the industrial equipment. You're maintaining heavy equipment here, and you want it to be safe and efficient. The original plan proposed an in-ground lift, which does have some significant underground infrastructure. So we worked with the DPW staff to identify alternatives that would still provide that same lifting capacity in a safe and efficient manner, and came up with a modified design that consists of a recessed platform lift. So you can still lift the same number of vehicles the same way. It's just a less expensive system. It's a little different because it's lifting by the tires versus the axle, but it's a very common one. You can see some example photographs in the bottom of the screen below. So again, because of that infrastructure that's now above grade, there's less costs. We took a look at the overall building itself, again, to see if there's a way that we could reduce the building. I think we've talked a lot about the fact that we've, over the last year and a half, we've really worked at refining that. So while we did not identify any spaces that we wanted to cut, we're able to identify an alternative where we could take the existing space and essentially combine it. So in the top plan, we actually had single-length drive-through bays. And you can see in the bottom plan, circled in red, is stacked drive-through bays. So we're still providing adequate number of maintenance bays for the staff, but we're just putting them together so that they're reducing and sharing some of the circulation space. And through that reconfiguration, we're able to reduce the overall building square footage by about 1,100 square feet. So not significant, but it's a savings that doesn't impact operations, and we feel that every little bit is going to help on this project. Now, the next item, too, as part of that reconfiguration, we also took a look at the mezzanine structures. The mezzanines are shown here in yellow, and the proposed original plan had the mezzanine with 5 access points. And those access points obviously cost money because each one is a stair. And we also had mechanical equipment that was on that mezzanine. And so what we did is we relocated some of that equipment to the roof, and we were able to reduce the mezzanine. But we did not reduce the usable area. In fact, we increased it a bit because we moved some of that equipment to the roof. And we were able to reduce the access points, reducing the stairs from 5 to 2. So as you can see, we looked at every piece of this building as we went through it. Because we were able to reduce the overall footprint of the building, we're also able to reduce some of the site development costs, starting with the pavement as an example. So you can see the existing edge of pavement shown with that dashed line. And on the bottom, that's the proposed revised modified plan. And if you superimpose that, that area shaded in red represents the amount of paving that we're able to reduce. And with that, that helps to reduce your stormwater system and saves on your subgrades associated with that pavement. So it's kind of a snowballing effect of increased savings. And as I mentioned, we were able to reduce the stormwater system. So the original design, you can see I've numbered them. There are 5 underground infiltration systems because we need to treat that runoff on site. And so by reducing the overall pavement area, we were able to consolidate. But also, because we took out that retaining wall, we were able to put some bioretention swales around the perimeter of the site where we couldn't before because we had the retaining structure there. And so that allowed us to combine and consolidate infiltration basins 1 and 2 into a single one and reduce that size. And also, we had one area of impacted soil that's shown in red called the Group C material. And you can see in the upper one that was being impacted by the stormwater system, and the lower one we were able to avoid that, thus reducing the amount for disposal costs associated with that material. And then as we got through the rest of this, we looked at everything. And what I would refer to these as minor scope or material changes, anything from changing the type of overhang on the building to reducing granite curb, to changing the floor drain routing to reduce piping, to modifying HVAC systems slightly to try to save on costs. And then finally, one of the questions and comments that came from a previous meeting with the Select Board was, can the DPW do any of this work? The DPW has some very talented staff, and they're doing a lot around town, but was there an opportunity for them to take on some of this work? And working with the DPW director and with DPW staff, the DPW has committed to doing 2 things. Number one is extending the water line into the site, where the contractor will then pick that up and connect it to the building, as well as completing the landscaping at the end of the project. We still carry an allowance for the materials, but the labor would be based on the DPW workforce. So in summary, the overall program, as I mentioned, very minor change from 33,700 square feet down to 32,600 square feet. This represents a building that meets the operational needs of the DPW, but provides some savings just through some efficient reconfiguration of the space. And this is the overall existing site. You can see the existing facilities located in the center of your screen, Town Hall to the right, along with Tremont Street. And you can see the limit of work is shown outlined here in red for the new work, and as you superimpose it, you can see this is the proposed new facility, the one that's out on the street for bid right now, that's slightly reduced, as well as the reduced site work. And then this is the proposed plan. You can see the major operational areas, including offices, shops, vehicle maintenance, wash, and vehicle and equipment storage are all maintained. And you can see at the top, we do have a vehicle storage canopy or equipment canopy. This is essentially an extension of the roof that's in as a bid alternate should we have good prices from the contractors. So I just wanted to kind of wrap this up with what has been driving these changes. We've talked about this in the past, but since this has been going on for a while and we've talked about ways to reduce costs and what the challenges have been with trying to reduce those costs, I thought I would give you a little bit of a summary of what this project has been facing regarding the overall costs.
Just before we go there.
Yeah.
Just that table. Can you go back to the previous table, please? Sorry, keep on, the square footage table. Sorry. Long way back, my apologies.
Oh, did I go too far?
No, keep on going.
Keep
Oh, one
going
more.
back.
One more.
There we go.
Yeah, this one. So maybe it's a question for Sheila. So the biggest reduction in square footage has been vehicle maintenance. And I just want to make sure, just want to double check with Sheila. I mean, that's a big part of what you want to get done in that new facility is be able to maintain your vehicles and work on them indoors rather than outdoors you have in the past. Are you okay with that reduction in square footage for vehicle maintenance?
Well, actually, of all the changes, that's the one I am most comfortable with.
Is that right?
Yes, I like what we did with the mechanics bay. Frankly, I think we had too big of a maintenance bay. I like the layout now. We only have 3 mechanics. We still have 5 bays.
Right.
I think it's very functional. So I prefer what we've done with
Okay.
the mechanics bay.
All right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will be interested in, you did say that you're the most comfortable with this, and you gave the impression that you were not
You buried the
comfortable
lead.
with some other
Well, I mean,
issues.
we really tore this apart in our internal meetings. Because, yeah, nobody likes the term value engineering. I certainly don't like it. But we're in a situation where we have to make some difficult cuts. So I wasn't overly enthused about losing the overhang, but is that going to impact the functionality of the facility? No, it's not going to be great when people are standing out at the garage bay and they're getting rained on, but it's something we can work with. The salt shed was another one that I was very skeptical about, but we went and visited a DPW facility that has that same style, talked to that DPW director, and got feedback that it's not an issue. So I was relieved to see that. What else? Salt shed. I prefer the recessed platform lift, so I thought that was a good change. Significant cost savings. And the tight tank, the reduction in the tight tank. So that's the wash bay. So by reducing that volume, that means we have to empty it out more frequently. So I'm not thrilled about that because that's extra cost, extra maintenance. But again,
Does it
we
have
had
to be
make
pumped out by a service?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Use our new vac truck.
You need a bigger truck. So those were the big ones. But yeah, the maintenance garage, I think it's going to be much more functional.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
There's a question.
Sure, one more, yeah, that's fine. Is it for,
No, well, it could be. I don't think so. I think it's for Jeff.
all right, that's fine, go
I
ahead.
just was wondering, you talked about some changes or decreases in the HVAC system, and I was wondering if you could just,
Sure. We went from, and initially we had a chiller because we were designing a extension of the administration area if prices came in. And so the chiller allowed us to design a system that we didn't have to design twice. But because we weren't doing that extension, we changed it to a typical rooftop unit that we provide in most facilities. That was really the only change that was made to that.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask the board to hold your questions for the remainder of this. Let's just wrap this up.
Okay.
The,
Sure.
Thank you.
Just get back to that slide. Okay, so again, talking about what has been driving these changes, and I just wanted to show some construction cost data. So this is cost data. I've personally been designing public works facilities my whole life. I've done, not my whole life, sorry, 30 years. Feels like my whole life. I've been involved in 150 plus in my career, and what's great is, as an organization, we have a big team. We keep data on actual cost for public works facilities. So we're not using national averages. We're using costs in New England for public works facilities. And so this is a table where I've just gone back to 2014, and it's showing you some of the construction costs. This is the average cost per square foot based on projects that were bid, so not estimates, actual bids. And you can see early, this helps us to guide us when we're doing cost estimating. And you can see early in 2014 to 2016, it was pretty flat. We saw 1 to 2% increases a year. From 2016 to 2019, we thought at the time we saw increases in the 12 to 15% range. That was actually high, but it was consistent. So using that data when we were doing the feasibility study, which again was done in 2020, 2021, we take historic data and we project that using historic escalation rates. And so in 2021, this is when our estimate was done. We were using data going back to 2014, but really 2016 on, and then using the most recent data, and then projecting that out to 2023, which was the anticipated bid date originally, to get our $26.4 million. So that's under normal circumstances. And I think we all know that beginning in 2021, the term normal is not used often when we ran into the pandemic. So the pandemic also impacted our lives in many ways and also impacted the construction market significantly. So in 2020, what we actually saw was a dip, what I refer to as a recession dip. We had maybe a 2 to 3 month official recession associated with the pandemic. And so we actually bid some work and saw a drop in prices. I hadn't seen that in my whole career, this kind of drop. And then coming out of that, quickly as that recession, so-called recession, ended, we saw the prices return back in 2021 to essentially where we were projecting the prices when we had our estimate. So you can see that in that circle, we're right on track with that historic projection line. And that's what was prepared in our feasibility study, and that's what we went to town meeting to seek funding. So at that time, prices had returned back to normal. The expectation, the hope was that you continue on this trajectory that we've seen for many, many years. But that was all but true. As we began to emerge from the pandemic, we began to see this erratic pricing. There was supply chain shortages, material shortages, cost spikes, labor shortages. All of these had a significant impact, and we saw historic increases that we had never seen in the market before. Some folks are saying, let's wait it out, it's just going to drop back to where it was, but that wasn't the case. The next year it continued, a little less increase, but still significant. And into 2024, you can see that curve is beginning to level back out, more consistent with where we were back in the 2016 to 2019 range. So these were the historic prices that resulted in, over a 3-year period, over 67% increase. I mean, these were unforeseen global escalation rates. They impacted everything that we bought, all goods and services, from groceries to gas to cars to anything at Home Depot, which is your construction material, and that translates right into the construction market. So this is the curve that we've been chasing, trying to cut our costs as costs continue to increase at a rate that I would say is significantly higher than anything I've seen in my 30-year career. But just wanted to give you that history, but in summary, excuse me, In summary, while we've been giving it our best effort to identify and incorporate cost-cutting measures, we've been unable to offset those historically high escalation rates. We do feel that this October 9th plan that's currently out on the street includes reasonable and measurable cost-cutting measures and will provide the DPW with a facility that will meet their operational needs now and well into the future, and more importantly, will address the substandard conditions that the staff are currently working in. And that is it. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Members of the board, go ahead, Brian.
A couple, and Sheila actually touched upon one. The salt shed, for example. I know starting from way back, we were talking about going from a regular roof to a tension membrane roof, and
Yep.
now we're talking about concrete blocks. Can you explain for this board in a general sense how any of the reduction measures that are being proposed will affect the lifespan of any of the improvements? So I'm just thinking with concrete blocks, I know they're sizable blocks, but if you've got a front end loader going in and out of there all day long during the winter, do those get knocked around? Does that decrease the life of the salt shed, for example? So I'm concerned about whether any of these proposals, while saving money in the short term, are they reducing any lifespan of things that maybe we wouldn't have had to buy 10 years from now, but now we're going to have to buy in 10 years?
Sure. I think it's safe to say that most of the changes that we made do come with some changes to the original design intent. But everything that we've proposed, we've been constructing at other facilities around New England. So I would never propose something that in 5 years is going to be falling down. As I said, we've been doing this 30 years, and we're proud of the facilities that we built 30 years ago. So we wanted that to be the same situation here. The salt shed's a good example. So a timber structure will have a longer lifespan than a tension membrane or fabric structure, as some refer to it. But the benefit of the fabric structure is the typical lifespan is 20 years on the fabric structure, but the steel will last the same as a timber, and you just replace the fabric structure. Fabric structure can cost $15,000 to replace, so it's not a significant cost versus having to replace a full timber structure. So there is a bit reduced life expectancy, but there's an easy replacement cost. On the block walls, if we went with just standard block walls, stacked, and they kind of look like Legos, they have the knobs on them and they stack on each other, that over time would likely be subject to movement, but we actually proposed that block wall to be installed with plates at every joint that are screwed into those block walls, locking them together, so we're not concerned about movement. And we also provide a sacrificial wall on the inside, which is a plywood wall that's on 2x4 supports. So that's the wall that typically takes the abuse, and that's a very low-cost wall to replace over time. So those are some of the measures that we're incorporating. There are some, I call them higher long-term maintenance costs, but not significant from a cost perspective.
Okay, so we're not being penny-wise, pound-foolish
No,
on
definitely
any of this
not.
stuff.
Nope.
And then, relatedly, and I don't think I've asked this before, but given some of the aerial shots I meant to ask earlier, I presume we're maintaining an adequate buffer to the cemetery. I know that's getting a lot of love, especially long-term, and
We
I
are.
want to make sure we're not encroaching on future development over in the
Correct.
cemetery. So
We are.
that's
Correct.
Yeah.
It's pretty well separated now, but I know there's going to be quite a bit of clearing to accommodate this new building.
Yep, no encroachment,
Okay.
and we've maintained a good natural buffer there.
Great, thank you.
Just another kind of on the technical theme that we're on. Regarding the drainage, there's been some changes made to the drainage, and we are in a Zone 2 wellhead zone there. You mentioned bioretention basins. Are we using best management practices? We're not burying any plastics or liners? Are we doing rain gardens? I want to make sure that we're using the best management, that we can for
Yes.
for the drainage.
Yeah, we've designed to meet the Massachusetts DEP's best management practice for a higher potential pollutant load site, which this is. So that includes pre-treatment of all runoff before any infiltration. And we've used a combination of infiltration methods, including the bioretention basins, but we also do have some underground recharge chambers, which are a Caltech system, which provides like an underground storage and infiltration capabilities. And what we do is we take the stormwater that doesn't get exposed to vehicles. So anything that comes off the roof, as well as anything that comes off of the slope, and that's what we're trying to do through the bioretention or through or perforated PVC pipe or perforated HDPE pipe, so we can infiltrate what's called clean runoff without impacting the environmental conditions at all. But all of the rest of that stormwater goes through stormwater quality structures to treat that deep sump-hooded catch basin so that that first flush is all pre-treated.
So I guess, let me just confirm that are we in fact using any type of liners? When you use these so we're not capturing using any kind of plastics or these bioretention underground, okay, just want to make sure, because
I'm not sure, we are using Caltech underground infiltration systems, which is it's a HDPE, call it a half pipe system, if you're familiar with that, but we're not doing any liners.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right, thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions before I ask? Rainey, one concern I have, and I know I expressed it to you when we talked this week, but is that we're going to be getting these bids 5 days before town meeting. What is your plan for informing this board about what the bids are, and possibly having us even vote our recommendation for town meeting?
Well,
in
I'll
that
send
short
you
period
an
of
email letting you all know that we've gotten the bid results and what they are, and then we'll go from there. As we have done in the past, we can vote the recommendations at the meeting prior to town meeting.
Right, because I guess the idea was here to have a fixed amount that we would be asking town meeting for.
Yep.
And initially, it was based on the windfall off the seawall. But our hope was that we don't know what the bids will come in at, but we're
Right.
hoping that it will be less than that even.
Yep.
And that's what I'm getting at, is like how will we know that before town meeting?
I'm going to send you an email and let you know what the bid results are, and then we'll be able to tell you the number that we're going to recommend that you
Okay.
include in the motion. Let's say it's, I don't know, let's say it's not 5 million. Let's say that we only need 4.2. Then I'm going to tell you guys, hey guys, I want you to think about 4.2. If they come in higher, then I may ask you to go for the full 5, because we'd have to go out to bid again later. So with another redesigned building. But that's a bridge we'll cross when we get there. Right now we're just shooting for the 13th and the 18th.
May I ask the chair if we're going to discuss this evening? I know we all got a kind of a late afternoon separate submission that I didn't
yeah.
really have a chance to look at.
Yes, we are.
We were also going to talk about the
was gonna ask.
overages,
Mhm.
the 1.7 million that we've spent to date, I
Yeah,
think.
I was going to ask a question about that, Amy, if that's
great.
okay.
Thank you. Absolutely.
All right. So in the original bid, right, you had 25% allocated for soft costs, right? Which are, I presume, the CHA, OPM services, your services, and other miscellaneous soft costs comprise that, right? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So that was 5.3 million, right? We've spent, in terms of soft costs to date, we've spent 1.7 million. And they're still pending the construction and closeout costs from CHA, OPM, and your costs of a further 700,000. So that brings up the total to 3.1 million. Is that what you're thinking is going to be the soft costs now, rather than the 5.3, or there's still some other soft costs which are not identified in this table?
Yeah, I'll try.
Because what I'm trying to understand, right? There's soft costs, but the bid.
Yes.
Will the bid include other soft costs that are not being tracked so far?
So the project budget will include other soft costs. So the remaining pieces are the construction administration services,
Yes.
which you've mentioned, but we also carry additional costs for furniture, fixture, and equipment. So this is furnishing of the building, as well as the IT infrastructure, communications within the building.
Okay.
There's other costs which include things like utility back charges. So the utility company, once they actually come out, will have a back charge to the town. Commissioning, which is required by Massachusetts State Building Code, which is a third-party agent to come in to make sure the systems are running appropriately. There's construction testing and inspections, and that should cover the soft costs. Joe, is there anything that you want to add?
I think Joe Sullivan, CHA. So typically, out of that value that you had mentioned, the 1.7 is the construction, obviously, construction documents in preparation for that, for bidding purposes. We felt like we carried enough money based on the remaining soft costs to encapsulate not only from bidding, but through construction and closeout.
So you're still anticipating the soft costs? What you're anticipating is the total value of the total cost of the soft costs. Now, remember we talked about construction increasing by 67%, right? What's happening to your soft costs?
I'd have to, I don't have that, I could add that up for you. I don't have that total right in front of me.
Okay.
I mean, we have a budget showing those items. I would just have to total them.
Maybe another way to ask it. So on the 13th of November, we are going to get bids in.
Hard bids.
5 bids. And will those bids also include soft costs?
No, they will not. So typically, we have, in addition to what Jeff was indicating, we carry a contingency associated with this project too.
Right.
And that's for any unforeseen conditions or any added costs that might be needed based on any change orders. But the the hard cost directly from the general contractor will include all of the filed subcontractor bids, along with his costs associated with the scope of work that he anticipates on completing at one hard number.
Okay, maybe the request is once we get those bids in, and we've got to be really clear, the amount of money we're going to be asking for must include soft costs and include your 1.7 spent to date and what you're forecasting to spend.
It will be crystal clear.
All right.
Any other questions to the board on this issue? I know we have another issue too. Does anybody from the Finance Committee have a question about this? Go ahead.
I just have a short question. Sheila, do you know what it costs to pump that tight tank? Oh, sorry, Betsy Sullivan, do you know what it costs? So by decreasing the size of that tank, are we going to be buying the tank twice because we have to get it pumped on a more regular basis? So is it penny wise, pound foolish to reduce the size of that because of the cost of pumping it? You can speak, don't look at him, don't look at him.
Yeah, he might have the answer.
Oh, all right, fine.
Who's got the
You have
answer?
I do have an answer. I'll just
Okay,
get to
great.
the mic for you. And then certainly Sheila can answer. I don't have the exact cost for the pumping, but I can tell you that in this design, what we've done is we've provided what's referred to as a sand gas separator or an oil gas separator before the tight tank, so that the material that's going into that tight tank is going to be less expensive to dispose of, because the contaminants that would come from that plumbing discharge will be captured in the oil water separator. And so that's the way to control the overall costs.
Okay. And the other thing is, we built this whole thing because we've been so concerned about the impact to our employees and that they have to stand outside in, terrible weather. And now we've just gotten rid of the overhang. It blows my mind that after all that, there'll be a new building and they're still getting wet, sleeted, and everything else. So what is the cost of the overhang? What are you actually saving?
So that was a question that came up at our last meeting, actually. I wanted to know what the cost was, so maybe Jeff has that. But this is just an overhang along the edge of the building. So the employees will have ample space within the building. There's a whole muster room, a break room, where they can
When they're
congregate.
working on the equipment, or when they're bringing it in, or whatever? They'll be dry?
Well, at each doorway, there's still an overhang, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yes.
Okay.
But not coming out of the maintenance
Right.
garages. So,
So what purpose does the overhang serve then? Let's be clear about it. I think that's Betsy's question. What does the overhang do for you?
convenience, not that I would encourage it, but if you have an employee that smokes cigarettes, they step outside and they're out of the rain still, but
Oh,
they're
no,
not
let
in
'em
the
stay in
building.
the rain.
So it's not a
No.
safety,
So-
it's not a
No.
safety issue.
Rain.
Potentially if you had icicles, I suppose.
We don't get
So I just thought, I'd rather have the overhang, but if it's,
It
Yeah.
doesn't sound, it doesn't sound,
And we're not
Yeah,
talking about the
it's almost
canopy.
aesthetic.
This is separate.
no, the
It's only
canopy
15
is something that's going to be as an
stories up.
alternate.
Right.
And we're hoping that the bids come in favorable, that we can include that, because that's a very flexible space. So there's a lot of future potential with that canopy, so we really want to see that canopy, if at all possible.
right, so I think we're getting confused here. I thought
Yeah.
the overhang
No,
was the
this-
canopy. No, okay.
This is it's like
Yeah,
a
give us
porch
a-
on your
on the
house,
edge.
I
you
know.
know, so
So,
it's-
and one final question on the, by putting all the HVAC to the roof, have we then, and from, not in the mezzanine, have we then impacted the useful life of those pieces of equipment? We don't seem to have a very good history on running it out for the entire useful life for these pieces
So-
of gear, and I'd like to improve that.
All right, so maybe that might be more of a question for Katie St. Clair, the facilities director.
I know the
But,
answer.
yeah, so,
Counsel,
but
that was a
I
leading
mean,
question.
It was.
she had been brought into these meetings and was not vehemently opposed to putting them on the roof. So
Not
she said
opposed.
that's where they typically
Okay.
are, as you know, but nothing's perfect, and there will be maintenance and O&M costs. So just getting back to that, the wash bay storage tanks, one of the items I was skeptical on with the reduction in size, they had run a calc that in theory, that wash bay tank could fill up after a storm. So that kind of made me pause, well, geez, you know, if we have back-to-back storms, do we have to schedule pumping those tanks? So, but that's a very conservative calculation. That's if every piece of equipment is, yeah. So it's probably not realistic, but, you know, it is something we will have to watch.
Go ahead, Amy. I know you had a question, and then I'll let,
I just have a couple of questions about the spreadsheet that we received quite a few weeks ago, September 16th. That was a list of the project that's been billed to date, if you will. So it was a little over $1.7 million that has been expended as of that date. So it's probably more at this point, obviously. But there were a couple of items on here that I was curious about, and that was, and again, because our conversations all along included a design that included the sustainable, the greenest design that we could get, along with having everything, you know, we would have liked to include solar there, but at least it was going to be solar ready. But there's two costs reflected here, one for $55,000 and for the sustainable design, and one for $10,000. Are these additional costs? Why are these called out this way?
So these are basically a breakdown of the way that the services are billed to the town. So the sustainability study was done in the initial phase of the project. That was used to identify potential for sustainable building elements. And then the solar piece was the work associated with doing a conceptual layout, identifying areas for us to have penetrations for a future solar system, and also to come up with loads for our structural engineer to design the building system to support future solar array. So that's the effort that was put into coming up with those design elements that are needed in order to prepare the building for future solar.
And has any of the sustainable, either the green design or the roof solar design, been impacted by these changes that include the HVAC on the roof?
No.
So that-
I'm sorry. Yes. So when you put a unit on the roof, it does create some shading. So it's a slight reduction in the available roof area. But what we did is the largest, most critical area for solar is the vehicle and equipment storage area, so we tried to minimize any equipment on that because that's the largest, flattest area with the best exposure.
Thank you.
Chair?
JR 1351 Tremont Street. I am also concerned with the wastewater or wash water going into that tight tank. I know something about the cost of having those tight tanks pumped and the ongoing cost incurred with that. And I would ask the question, although I don't think this is the right time to discuss design because we're far beyond that, but a filtration system so that we could take that wash water and just turn it back into the basically stormwater drains, the cost of that versus the cost of the tight tank installation and the tight tank maintenance. Thank you.
Smart.
So there's two elements. The smaller tight tank capacity does not change the amount of material that need to be disposed of. It's just the frequency. So we're comfortable, and we've gone through and talked to some other communities that have similar sized tanks, that this will give the DPW a significant amount of time between pumping events. We have looked at recirculation systems to try to reduce. The biggest problem that we have is that there's a lot of salt product that's used on these vehicles, and the treatment systems don't. The treatment system to remove salt is significantly costly, and we're not able to put them in for these types of wash systems. And so in the past we would put them in, but they would always turn them off because there would be so much dissolved solids from the salt in the product that they weren't functional. So unfortunately, because of the nature of the business, the recirculation systems aren't great. But that's ultimately one of the benefits, is that we're keeping all that out of the stormwater system. It's going into the tight tank and properly being disposed of.
Any other members of the public have questions for it? Thanks, Fred.
Friend Weiler, Finance Committee. I have 3 questions, but I'll make them quick, and I think you can get to them all right. I'm concerned regarding the value engineering of this building. We did that to the police station, and we're paying that price by having to do some repair work at a brand-new building. How can we avoid that happening on this facility? Curious about the cost, drivers. $820 a square foot for a maintenance facility seems like a big number from any reasonable thought. The question is there something that's driving it? Is it steel? Is it glass? Is it electrical, mechanicals? In that, if it's one particular or 2 particular pieces, we could zero in on those as our areas we wanted to cut costs. And finally, if I recall correctly, there was a very significant contingency fee that was larger than 10%. It was, I think, almost twice that. Is that something that we've looked at now that all of the groundwork study has been done? Because there was some contingency money in there in case we ran into contaminated soils or whatever, or a ledge, what have you, and all that's been cleared away. Not that I think I want to give up the contingency, but maybe that's a way to either get the right salt shed or even the canopy, if you will. Those are my 3 questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll try to address those. I jotted down a couple quick notes. So I know that the first comment was a concern about the VE and if we're under-designing the building, and I think that I can tell you for a fact that that's not what we're doing. That's why it's been such a challenge over these last years, is to try to come up with savings. Might have been me being too close. We've been trying to come up with savings without sacrificing the operation and the functionality and the longevity of this building. So you can see that we've gotten into the nitty-gritty, but we're comfortable that what we're providing is consistent from the standard of quality that we're putting into the public works facilities that we've been building for years, and we're confident that it'll provide the longevity that the town needs and provide a safe and efficient facility for years to come. Safety is number one. We did not sacrifice anything when it comes to employee and operational safety for this building. So these are all more just trying to get creative and use alternate construction methods that will still provide a long-term durable system. The cost drivers is a great question, and sometimes that changes by the month. For a time, steel was a significant cost driver. Windows has had been a significant cost issue, primarily with getting the material delivered, and that driving up costs. And what we've seen more recently is the HVAC costs have been significantly higher. We've seen electrical coming back down. So as I mentioned, it's really been a seesaw, which is one of the reasons why we focus on the HVAC. And again, we didn't under-design or undersize that system, but because we weren't going for an expansion of the administration area, it would have actually just been a waste of money to leave that chiller in place. So we were very careful about picking and choosing some of these based on what we know in the market. And I think Joe Sullivan is going to talk a little bit about the contingency.
They were great questions. So there's actually, as we're bidding and we're actually doing construction documents, typically there's two contingencies that are carried: design contingency and then construction contingency. The design contingency is carried as we do the estimates, as we go through each facet of the design. It would be design development, all the way from schematic design development and construction documents. What ends up happening with that design contingency is it slowly reduces when we start to understand the actual scope and the equipment that they're proposing and the actual components within the building, and those are finishes and all that. So that basically disappears as we finalize the cost as we get to construction documents. The design, the construction contingency, we like to carry about 5%. I'd like to have a little bit more, but we carry about 5% of the overall construction cost. And the reason we do that is just for the unforeseen conditions. And, if there was a perfect set of drawings, I've yet to see them in my 35 years of career, but at the end of the day, we try to, forecast some of those challenges and carry monies just in case we need it. The last question that you had was the differential between, the cost differential of, what it was to 820. There are different parts of this building that are going to cost differently. The vehicle storage is going to be a little less per square footage, and the administration area is going to be a little bit more. What we have been seeing is that there's been a standard through 2022 to late 2023 to get us up to at least almost 820. It's leveled and come down a little bit. It hasn't. I wish the arrow went the other direction as quick as it went up. I truly believe that. In fact, and I brought this point up to the board last time I was here, the Massachusetts School Building Authority actually acknowledged the course of events that went from 22 to 23, because they had a lot of schools that were out in design and actually being bid. What they ended up doing is when they saw the significant cost increase per square footage, even for those particular municipal buildings, they went to the legislature and got $150 million additional so that they could offset some of those costs. I wish, and truly imposed, I wish they would have done that with, first responders and DPW buildings, but they haven't gotten to that point. The other part of this that it hasn't formatted itself yet is the state's actually looking at public safety, including Department of Public Works, as coming up with a building authority that would be able to help participate in the reconstruction moving forward. It's going through a lot of steps to try to get those approvals. It won't be in time, obviously, for this particular project. So they are acknowledging that the infrastructure for each town is very important, and what the aspects are and the cost implications related to that. Okay, you're welcome.
Any other questions on this issue?
Can I confirm what the HVAC, what are we fueling that with? Is this gas? Is this oil? What? Is it geothermal, since we're digging up the whole site?
It's natural gas, but we've provided energy recovery units within the building so that any air that's exhausted in specific areas that are occupied are recovering that energy and reintroducing that back into the space.
And just to touch on one of Friend's comments, what is the warranty on this if there are problems with the building?
It's for the contractor, it's a 1-year overall construction warranty, but then within their building components, certain components vary. So you have weather tightness warranty for 20 years on the building. You have 8 to 10-year warranties on the overhead doors. So there's specific warranties that apply to different elements, but overall it's a 1-year warranty for construction.
Thank you.
Who stands behind those warranties?
It's,
Who's the
it's,
responsible party?
so it's the contractor signs.
Weston and Sampson, right?
Yeah. To check with my counsel on that one, but no, the contractor is required, as they sign a contract with that warranty in it, in the event that they don't come back during that 1-year period, then the town could seek legal action. I could tell you that I've never had an issue with a contractor coming back in the 1-year period, especially because they're getting DCAM ratings from the town, and certainly if they're in violation of responding to the contractual terms, that affects them, and these contractors that we've been working with typically will come back to address any issues.
What about the 20-year waterproofing?
So that's done through the manufacturer, so at closeout time, we require them to submit the actual warranty, signed warranty from the manufacturer. So that comes from the manufacturer. And again, it's it's provided to the town through the closeout documents, and if they were to violate it, you'd be able to seek legal action in that respect. But
Seeking legal action doesn't help.
no, I understand, but we don't require, what's that?
I just want to add to it, too. So, those are great questions, and one thing that we do early on is, once the building gets occupancy, we perform a punch list. So that punch list is obviously taken care of by the general contractor while he's on site and while the department's moving in. But we do one step further than that. We create a warranty log, and we provide a warranty report format to the DPW and their staff. They submit that, not only the general contractor, to us in Weston and Sampson, just for record purposes, and then we track a log. That log actually tracks what the issue was, who's responsible for it, when it was corrected. It was inspected and approved by the DPW, so that we document those tracking. Because you can have a warranty issue happen more than once, and what does that mean to the town? So we try to track that really closely. The other thing that we do through the closeout process is we have a pre-1-year walkthrough. So we're going to identify any issue with this building prior to that 1-year warranty and document it. Once it's documented and submitted to the overall, and those are file subcontractors, whatever they might be, it might be 17 file subcontractors in the general, we're going to track that appropriately, and we'll manage that warranty list to get completed as well. And there is significant impact to bonding companies, because the bond is held through that warranty period. So we will have a legitimate and a process of leverage to move forward with those contracts.
I was going to ask about the bonding.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I just want to make sure you're aware of that.
I'd like to jump to the discussion regarding the owner's project manager letter to accompany the DOR's DE2 debt exclusion application submission. I expect that we'll hear from Mr. Sullivan again, because he's the author of this. But Mary, could you explain, is this something that we have to do for municipal finance practices? Where did this come from?
So this is
The genesis of it, I guess.
So if you recall, when the $26.4 million was initially approved by town meeting, it was approved contingent upon a debt exclusion vote. So the debt that was authorized for the building, so the debt exclusion vote did not specify the amount. A debt exclusion vote on a ballot does not. It just simply is a question on whether the town will support excluding that debt, which means that we can raise the funds to pay for that debt service over and above the levy. So $26.4 million was approved at town meeting as the appropriation. And now what we are doing is going back to town meeting on November 18th and asking them to increase that appropriation. And in doing so, we want that appropriation to remain debt excluded. So the mechanism to do that is to modify the original debt exclusion, the DE, that's what DE stands for. So this is now a DE2. It's a modification to the original appropriation. So what it allows us to do is to make sure that the debt that is being issued for this particular project remains debt excluded, but because the increase in the cost of this construction project is due to inflationary issues and not due to an increase in the scope of work, then the Department of Revenue allows communities to increase the appropriation through a town meeting vote and not require going back to the ballot. So yes, we are asking you to take up the DE2 form tonight, and there are two requirements for that. One is that the owner's project manager complete a report explaining the inflationary impacts of the project costs and confirming that this was not due to an increase in scope. And I think we just spent an hour talking about how it's not an increase in scope. And so that's what the letter speaks to. And then there is a form that we would ask for you guys to sign in order to be submitted to the Department of Revenue. I will let you know it just as an aside. We've already spoken with the Department of Revenue to make sure that this is an eligible project, and the events that have occurred to date would be eligible for this approval, and they have indicated that yes, that is the case. And we've also reached out to another community who had recently or had had a construction project where this exact same issue happened. That was the town of Groton, building a public building, and they needed to seek an additional appropriation and use the debt exclusion component, just like we are doing here.
Why is it 5 million as opposed to the actual number?
So
That
this
we
is
don't know yet.
So this is up to. So this is, by filling this out, this is not committing us to a number. It is letting the Department of Revenue know an upper ceiling. The number that we will commit to, and the only number that it matters, is the appropriation that we seek at town meeting. So the number that is stated in the motion when we bring the article to town meeting, that is the number that will then be added to the existing appropriation, and that becomes the upper limit for any debt that we can issue for this project.
But if we're, and I don't want to speak for anybody else here, but if we're not comfortable with the full 5, and we think some lesser number is appropriate, whatever that might be based upon the bid, how does that affect what we're being asked to do tonight versus something that we can do at a later date?
So by doing this tonight, this starts the approval process, because it does take a few weeks for the Department of Revenue to queue this up and to do their review. The idea is that again, it's not committing you to a number, but the idea is that we want to start that approval process sooner rather than later, so that once we have completed the town meeting action and hopefully achieve a successful result, that we are able to award that bid quickly. Remember that the bid is only valid for a certain period of time, and time is money. So this starts the process of approval through the Department of Revenue so that it would align itself with the events for town meeting.
Is there any risk in us voting for the full 5 million? Is that being some sort of signal to the market to say, when you do your bids, they've got an extra 5 versus an extra whatever?
Your board does not authorize an appropriation. Town meeting is the body that authorizes an appropriation.
No, but I think you were meaning to the bidders out there, that,
Right.
you know, if we're already acquiescing to 5 million, then anybody who's maybe submitting a bid knows that.
But you're not
Up to
because
5 million to play.
because you can't. Only town meeting can appropriate.
No, not what town meeting appropriates. And maybe I'm seeing ghosts, but
Yeah.
what I'm concerned about, Fernando agreed with me very
Yes,
quickly.
Very, very quickly, sorry.
So my concern is, we as the select board, you're asking us to authorize up to another 5 million, or whatever the appropriate verbiage is, up to 5 million, with the expectation it's going to be some lesser number. But we won't know what that number is until the bids come in. Bids are sealed. If I'm a contractor and I'm going to bid on this, and I know now there's up to another 5 million available, why would I not? Would that not come into my?
I think Joe would like to answer, but I would
Okay.
also argue that this board has had several public conversations regarding this, and there's been information already printed in the newspaper, and as has been recorded in public discussions among this board. I don't know that it's.
I don't think this board has supported $5 million.
Not that there had been a vote for support, but there has been a conversation regarding this.
Right.
So I'd like to just answer a couple, and those are great questions. First and foremost, this is 149, it's not 149A, it's competitive bidding. Even if they, like, we do estimates when we put it out to bid, and we actually, run it in the combis and do a local ad, and we put it in the Central Register. We're doing a cost estimated value of what we think it's going to be at that point. So we're putting a number out there, what the estimated value at 90% CDs is in a reconciliation before it goes out. Competitively, even though the town is appropriating a possible additional funds, it doesn't necessarily mean the contractor thinks it's a windfall, because they still got to bid the lowest bid to win this project. So them understanding that, you know, the estimates, because they're using estimates too. They have estimators that are going to go through, price out the costs associated with every component of this building and come up with a final hard bid cost. You know, strategically, contractors will utilize at times alternates for a favorable bid. They'll price an alternate at a more reasonable amount, add that alternate into their hard bid, and they end up winning the project if it's successful and it's below that overall number. So competitively, what I've seen is that once a number is published in the Central Register, our bids typically come around that point. The good news with Duxbury is they've seen a lot of value engineering occurring with this project from the first time it was actually physically bid. The general contractors are reaching out. They're hungry for this project right now. So I have a strong feeling that we're going to get more bids on this particular project than we've seen in the past. The funding mechanism that Mary's speaking about is that we got to at least have that vote in place, or we can't issue a contract in its entirety at all if we don't have enough for the overall project. I've seen in other entities where we've awarded the contract and not spent some of the soft costs to try to offset some of that. But that's not, you know, good business sense, because now you're chasing the FF&E when you go to fit it out. So this is a great avenue to be able to at least identify the reasons behind it. And the Department of Revenue acknowledged, you know, there's been challenges, and they've actually implemented this process moving forward.
Did we do a similar, or did we receive a similar document before the March 2022 meeting? I know you weren't here.
No.
In terms of this, the debt
Like
exclusion
cost
revision?
estimators and understanding what he's affirmed in this.
The DE2? No, we didn't
There's a
need to.
statement of cost increase from
Yeah.
Mr. Sullivan in this letter.
We've had several presentations where they have participated.
No, back in 2022. I know you weren't
I
here.
wasn't,
No.
I have no idea.
Okay.
No, we hadn't
I just
hired,
didn't know if you uncovered it from your predecessor.
we hadn't hired an OPM yet.
Yeah, I wasn't there yet.
Well, that's my other, your attestation or affirmation, however you want to call it, was when you joined in November.
So, and I can tell you the reason why we did that. We have to show history of what, you know, when we do takeoffs on each step or facet of the construction, conceptual, schematic, design, development, we have to show what the estimates are tracking at. So that letter specifically shows the history of how we got to where we're at and the impacts for it.
Right, because I guess my biggest concern, based on the graph we had up earlier, is between 2020 and 2021, there was a 34% increase in historic public works facilities. Then the next year, there was a 33% increase. And then in 2022, we went to town meeting, and we asked for, I think, a $4 million inflation kick, which is about 15%. So I question why we didn't ask for a 33% potential inflation kick.
So that was before.
It was before you. I'm just trying to understand, because
So-
you have you're attesting to the cost increases here.
But those, I think you're looking, if I may,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Yeah.
Based on this chart, you're referencing those percent increases, but those are not known until after
Yeah.
the fact. Those
We're
are
referencing
actual
right.
costs
I
that
get
come
you.
out months and months later.
Yeah.
So you would not have known that.
Might not have known the second one, but we knew the first one. 2020 to 2021, it went up 34.
So what,
35%.
But exactly, and as Jeff was showing, that returned back to the trajectory
I know,
that they
I
had
saw that.
originally, yeah.
Right.
Right, I get it.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just, you're
We-
attesting to the post when
Yeah.
you joined the
Correct.
team in November.
And I still, part of the regulations is to show history of what led up to that point. And that's basically what I was
Right.
stating within the letter.
And we've asked those during the committee meetings, we asked the exact same questions. Why
Right.
didn't we use that number? But they're actuals, actual construction costs, not estimates.
Right.
So it's a timing issue.
Go ahead, Amy.
Sorry, I think for this letter, we received this at, I think, 5:17 this evening. I haven't even read it.
Let's go over it, shall we? We're all here.
It's a multiple page, 14 pages.
Because we're going to
it's a
run out of
lot.
time, and I think since we're here, we should go through it. I think it's the best bet.
Yeah. For the finalization of this letter, we obviously have to have it put in time and solidify that information for their review, so for their approval. So we need to go through it.
Let's go through it.
Want me to read it out loud?
Oh, no.
No.
Okay. Happy to do so.
So,
No, we've gone through a lot of it already tonight.
Mhm.
We have.
We've
I just don't know what we haven't gone over. You know what I mean? I don't know what I don't know. I don't
Well,
know
the
what-
historic timeline, so when you see the project summary, you've just heard that on page 1.
Yeah.
The construction schedule, summary, and timeline, Jeff covered that through all the slides.
Yeah.
The budget report, we've already talked about that, the deficiency of up to $5 million. The analysis of the inflationary circumstances impacting the project, he had several slides that showed you that.
Yeah.
The Bureau of Labor Statistics information, supporting the comments and the charts that were provided in both the presentation and the letter itself. And then you have Joe Sullivan as the OPM signing off on the statement of cost increase, certifying that this is the way it really is. And then when it comes to the statement detailing the changes made to date, those were all also covered in the presentation that Jeff had given you.
Well, there's also, I just want to, point this out for Amy's sake here. We discussed from the June bids to today's bid, to the October bids, the changes, which were minimal, but the initial change from March 2022 town meeting was 38,189 square feet. The current plan is 32,600 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Yep.
was not presented. That we discussed the June to October 2024 changes.
It's hard to keep track of the changes, and I know if, you're on the committee that, you're working with, but for us, there's a lot of changes to keep track of. And it's hard for me, because I keep going back to this, what town meeting came and listened to and voted on is different than what we have here today, based on the value engineering and the inflation factors and all the things that went into that. And the purpose of this, it sounds like, is to be able to ask town meeting for the additional money, up to $5 million, to do the project. We need to sign something that shows that you're attesting that all of the changes, the change in the price is all based on inflationary factors. And by signing that, then DOR can approve the increase in the original bid.
Correct.
That's a good synopsis. With the exception that at town meeting, the square footage was never discussed.
And Amy, to just be clarified, I'm attesting to this history of everything that we went through and identifying those changes. So as much as you feel responsible for this, I am as well. So I literally spent, a lot of time with Weston and Sampson and Mary to go through and make sure the accuracy of the documentation that we provided, not only to the committee, but to the select board. At each facet, I stood in front of you discussing each avenue and cost implications that we went through.
Let me ask this question, since this was, I don't know when, the date today, the 21st. Rainey, as town manager and responsible for overseeing this committee and this project, do you feel comfortable with the information that's in this letter and any of the accompanying documents?
Absolutely, I wouldn't have brought it to you if I wasn't.
And Mary, did you have chance to go through this with Mr.
Several
Sullivan?
times.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
I
It went
read
back
one.
and forth for
You
weeks.
feel comfortable?
Correct.
Okay.
And in the event town meeting doesn't approve any change, then it's moot.
It's moot. Correct.
Or we could still move forward with the article to authorize the 5 million because we're going to have to build something. We just don't know what it would be.
Well, I think that the residents will want to know what that's going to be before they appropriate money.
Before they move the 5 million? Yeah.
We're gonna have bids
Yeah.
in hand, so that
Yeah.
shouldn't be
We're
an
gonna have to
issue.
bid
Art,
bids.
I'm hoping the bids are under the dollar amount.
Yeah, that's the bottom line.
If they're
I mean,
over the dollar amount, then wow.
Then we're in trouble.
I love speaking to each one of you, but I want to give you good news on town meeting.
All right. 11, November surprise. All right. Do we need to take a, yes, we need to take a,
We've got to do two things. We've got to approve the report and we've got to approve the DE too.
I will take a motion to accept the OPM report as presented on October 21st, 2024. Oh, wait, you moved that, sorry.
I can move it. Well, you said you'll entertain the motion,
I'll
right?
entertain it.
Yeah,
So,
move as stated.
Yeah.
All right, so why don't I make it?
Yes.
I'll move that the select board accept the OPM report as presented on October 21, 2024.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Before we move on to the next one, the
Yes.
signatures, just so I can sleep a little better tonight. And if this is silly, please forgive me, but tell me one more time why it's important to do this 5 million now versus town meeting once we know what the number's gonna be.
So we
I
can
don't
have it
think
queued
so.
up and ready to go.
I think Betsy said it.
So they need,
So who wants to answer that?
So-
There's two people.
are you asking about the number or why do we need to send it to DOR ahead of time?
No, we can send, I understand you need to send something to
Mm-hmm.
DOR, but we have to say a specific number of 5 million.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
We have to give them a number to approve. And we've made a commitment that we do not want to exceed 5 million.
Okay.
I don't think that's a silly question. I think it's a good question. I think we need to
I think it's a
make
great
sure that-
question, because I don't know the answer.
No.
So,
Yeah.
and I'm not gonna whip around $5 million of
No.
the taxpayers' money without
And
being
the Department of Revenue is not
satisfied.
going to give us a blank check either.
No,
So
I get
that's why
that.
there needs to
Yep.
be
Right.
a
I
limitation
appreciate
so
that
that
question.
they
Yeah.
So it's
review it in
essentially like a
context.
pre-approval
It is.
for
Yeah.
town meeting.
Right,
It
but
is.
don't tell the car dealer what you're
Oh,
pre-approved for.
no, come on.
To go in
No,
there.
no, come on, Brian.
You know,
That's all right.
It's
That's all
okay.
right. You know,
It's okay. I
I'm
understand.
protecting your tax dollars as well,
No,
Fernando.
I'm protecting my tax
That's a good
dollars. I can
question.
assure you that I'm just as concerned as you are.
No, I'm glad we're
Anyway,
taking
let's
it.
move on.
Yep. Motion, please.
I move that the select board execute the DE-2 form and submit to the Department of Revenue as presented.
All those in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have a second from
Whatever her name is.
move through it. All right. That is all for the DPW presentation.
If we talk about the DBW anymore, too much more, I'm going to be able to build it
Yes,
myself.
thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you, thank
All
you,
right.
thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad you can be able to maintain your vehicles like you like.
All right.
Thanks, JR. Thanks, friend.
Thank you both. All right, we have, I'm going to start knocking off some of these ones we passed over. A discussion regarding ARPA funding requests presented by Finance Director Mary McKinnon.
I will apologize in advance. I'll say that again. I will apologize in advance that you did not get any time to read this, and I will explain why. But if you wouldn't mind taking one of these and passing it down. So we've give you a little bit of history while those sheets are coming by. So we have talked on numerous occasions about the ARPA program and the deadlines with respect to the ARPA program. There are two deadlines. One,
Anna?
One is a deadline that has been set by Plymouth County for the allocation we've received through them, and the other deadline is set by the federal government, the Treasury Department. And the deadlines are now looming very large. The county deadline is actually Thursday of this week to commit and obligate all of our ARPA funding that we have received through the county appropriation. Well, in the past 2 weeks, we've had some very interesting turns of events with respect to our desires with ARPA funding. And what I mean by that is we had initially earmarked a fair amount of, a significant amount of funding for some water and sewer projects that we were hoping to undertake. Because we are a municipality and we are subject to public procurement, and that's a lengthy process, and we ran into some issues with respect to procurement, which now caused us to pivot, and we are no longer using some of the funding that we had initially hoped to use for water and sewer projects. We would like to reprogram those to other purposes. So, and I'll give you one example. We went out to bid for the sewer system I&I, the inflow and infiltration study. We had earmarked that to be a $200,000 project. We received no bids on that project. So that's the type of situation that we're encountering. So, in order to avoid losing out on the ability to utilize these ARPA funds, what we are doing is pivoting as quickly as possible to program them and asking for your approval this evening because all of these applications need to be processed by Thursday. So what I'm asking for is your support of $677,393 for the projects that are listed below. You'll notice that the first set of projects are a number of items related to water and sewer. But what you will also note overall, if you look at all of the projects presented before you, with the exception of two, is that they are under the $50,000 threshold. And they are, and it is that way deliberately because given the timeline, we do not have the luxury of having complicated procurement in order to pursue these projects. So what we are doing is we are addressing issues that have been added onto the town's capital plan, both capital over 50 and under 50. We took a look at what has been declared as needs of the department, and we are addressing needs that departments have communicated to us, and doing so with the limited ability for complicated procurement. Does that make sense? The two that are over 50,000, the water sewer rate study and the McNeil dump, we did go out to bid for the water sewer rate study, the $65,000. We had talked with you guys that was coming. We did go through a public procurement process, did receive bids, and have awarded to a consulting firm for us to undertake that project. And then the other one is the McNeil dump. What happened with the McNeil dump is we had come before you several months ago, and you had supported the use of $485,000 to do the comprehensive design for the lining of the McNeil dump. In the course of that work, the consultant had advised us that Mass DEP has now come out with additional compliance requirements. And in order for us to incorporate those additional compliance requirements, we're seeking an additional $96,900 for the consultant to provide those activities. So I don't know if you need me to go through the entire list. I'm hoping that the descriptions are fairly self-explanatory.
Well, I'm interested in one selfishly because I spent time taking care of it. The Onion Field rehabilitation. What are we doing there? Do we, are we redoing, like, totally redoing it, or is it a portion of it, or?
So the description for those services is infield rehabilitation and arc replacement. So
Okay.
there's areas of the
Out.
field. I'm sorry?
Yeah, that's tough out. Yeah.
It is going to be regraded.
Yeah.
And the infield rehabilitated.
They'll do the laser shot, and when she talks about the arc, it's the arc for the infield to the outfield transition area.
That arc, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the field's, it's like a clay almost now. I assume it's going to be dumped. Something's going to be on top of it now.
Correct.
It will be much nicer.
Yeah, it'll be redone. We've got a guy that we've used for years that does terrific work.
Are they doing the dugouts?
It did not include
Separate
dugout
and
work.
Dugouts are separate and distinct.
This is a heck of a drainage issue over there. So, anyway, all right, I'll move on. There's plenty of other questions.
What, I'm just, are we, is this chart here the one that we're approving?
Yes.
And all the other charts that are on here?
So let me, I'll continue to explain that. So the chart that you're approving, I gave you a larger version.
Okay, so I
Thank
thought they were the
goodness. What is
same.
the back one?
Okay,
And then the last chart, which is this one,
yeah.
is a synopsis of all of the ARPA projects, including these before you, but all of the other ones also
Okay.
previously approved.
Right.
So that you can see that we are programming out as much of our ARPA funding, A, to meet the county deadline, and then B, for the federal deadline at December 31st. Okay, so that's where we stand.
Right, does that mean we're leaving 171,000 on the table, so to speak?
So we're not going to leave that, so I'll explain what that means. That means that we have not programmed that remaining $170,000
Huh?
because we have, with that pot of money, we have until December 31st to do so.
Okay.
What we are trying to accomplish is that the school department has indicated that they are in dire need of additional funding to complete some roof repair projects. And I am trying to earmark or set aside that funding, but right now, we were hoping that we would be able to do those projects under the existing procurement that they have already gone through, and that is not the case. The changes in the additional work changes the scope, and we have to go out to procure it again for the new repair work. So I'm trying to work with the school department to see if we can get that procurement done in time to utilize the remaining funding there to deal with school
And
roof
if
projects.
not, do you have a plan B?
There's no end of capital requests in this community. So we will pivot as quickly as we can prior to that December deadline if school roofs is not going to be an
Is
option.
that at Alden?
There's some work at Alden, but there's also some work at Chandler.
Chandler.
So because of what you just said, there's no end of capital requests. These were prioritized, obviously, by someone as being the most necessary.
So, no, I'm not saying, so they were prioritized by me, based on the confines of the program and the deadlines that we're under. These are not the number one or number two requests in the community because those requests are over the $50,000 threshold, which would require public procurement, and we don't have time to do that.
These are the ones that we only need to get quotes for, not bids, which are different.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just want to make sure we're not spending money just to spend money, you know.
We
it's-
don't do
It's
that.
coming.
I've talked, in response to that, Amy, I did speak with the departments, and in their ClearGov requests, they have prioritized, so I have chosen the top priorities from different departments. But we also need to be sure that we are able to have, we're not overloading any one person, right? So there's a lot of work for the water and sewer department to do in a very short period of time. This is also sort of spreading the love, if you will, but ensuring that other departments are also able to act on these requests in the time frame that we need them to.
The 96,900, the reason why we don't need to, that's part of the original scope then, that's engineering work we don't have to go out to bid for?
Correct.
That is correct.
Okay,
It's exempt from procurement.
exempt from procurement. Okay.
Okay, and the second part of my request is on the backside of that paper. So, I'm asking for, since we are now down to the end of this ARPA program, and we have deadlines where we need to pivot as quickly as possible, especially with this county funding, I'm asking that you delegate your approval authority to both Rainey and I for the remaining funding, so that as projects come in under budget, if we have the ability to utilize it quickly for some other project that either comes over budget or is on our capital list, that we're able to do it and not have to wait for a select board meeting.
We meet every week, though. Right?
Not necessarily.
But you have only until Thursday.
That is what they've stated. We're hoping that given all of the information that we have entered in their portal over the last 2 days, that they will extend the deadline and work with us. So it's in the event that that happens.
I mean, I think my preference would be to, have a look at it first, but,
I agree. Not only does it give us a chance to look at it, but it lets the community know what is happening with it. And that's the most important thing.
I mean, I suppose if there was something that was, we weren't meeting and, something was bringing up against the deadline, it would be all right, but.
If it's any consolation, Mary and I have approved $4.3 million, just so you know. We're asking for flexibility on $200,000. We'll let you know what we're spending it on. It's not going to be a secret.
Actually,
We just-
that makes
we
me
just
feel
want-
better.
We just want
Approved
the,
$4.3 million by yourselves?
no, with your approval.
Yeah.
but, I mean,
Oh.
before some of you were even on the board.
Are there
Oh, of
particular,
course.
are there
But-
particular items that
We're trustworthy, is what I'm
That are-
trying to say.
that
I
you
do
need
trust.
to bid on or get the quotes for or spend the money on, like, immediately? As opposed to, pushing this off to the next meeting or a meeting after? I don't want to put you in a spot, but I don't see, other than having to give us more info, I appreciate having that info and
Yep.
providing the community, but showing that we're good stewards of the money. Not to say that either or both of you acting individually wouldn't be. I would expect you to be. But if we're changing a process, I would need some justification to change that process.
So this is coming to the end of a grant, and we have a timeline, and we're asking for you to give us some tools in our toolkit to have the flexibility to ensure that we are using all of these funds to benefit the town of Duxbury. And we cannot anticipate what we may encounter with respect to working with some of these vendors on some of these projects. And in order for us to be able to effectively manage this grant program in the short time frame that we have, we're just asking for some flexibility to close it out.
So when you say the short time, you mean between now and Thursday?
Between now and December,
December 31st.
correct.
Well, we'll have
And we will
plenty of
bring
meetings.
forward with, we know that you meet on a regular basis, and we will bring forward projects to your attention during the course of, this process. However, if we need to make a decision quickly about perhaps we go to place an order for something that's on this list and all of a sudden the vendor tells us it's no longer available, having the ability to quickly pivot with some other like-sized project would provide that flexibility to ensure that we're not leaving anything on the table.
How about the middle ground?
I was just gonna say, can we meet us halfway? Like, if
Yeah.
you pivot during the week, can we get an update on it on the following Monday? Just,
Oh, you're going to know about it either way. I
say
promise
if you
that.
pivot from like doing a backwash tank and you decide to do I don't know.
Something else, yeah.
Something else. Can you tell us the Monday following
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that?
Sure.
You're going to know whatever we do anyways. There's
Absolutely.
no question about that.
Because I don't want to
Whatever
leave
your
any
comfort
dollars on
level
the
is.
table.
No.
that's what we're trying to avoid.
And we have many noble projects, so.
And also, if there's a ability to, wait for a day or two until we meet, that would be preferable.
I agree.
But if there isn't, there isn't. I mean, I guess that's
If
how
you're
I
under
would
the
go.
gun, that's one thing,
I
but
am
if,
under the gun.
Huh?
I said, I am under the gun.
But if you're under the gun to the point that you're going to lose the money because we're not meeting in time, that's, one thing. But if we are meeting in time, it would be preferable, I think, to be able to vote on it ahead of
See
time.
what's
That's a
going
nice guideline.
I agree.
Are you okay with that
I agree.
guideline?
Sure.
I'm fine with whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with
We vote on
that.
the amended guideline?
Sure.
Or
So
Perhaps something-
what was that? Why don't we articulate that guideline one more time?
Yeah.
So,
So if it was, something came up and there was an ability to wait for our next meeting, that would be our preference, that they will wait for us to be able to vote on it. If there isn't the time, if they're going to lose the money, if they wait, then go ahead and make that decision.
Okay.
but in any event, changes will be presented to the select board.
And I just made that motion. Do you want to second it?
So,
I'll second it.
but are you acting, would you say acting individually or together? Like how are you going to
Together.
make the decision?
Together.
We turn the keys together.
So, okay, so you
This
both
too.
would sign whatever the.
Yeah, that's how we do it
or
now.
something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Scott, you have to do last, no.
Michelle, did you get that motion then?
It'll be on video.
It'll be on
We cut it on video.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Do
you.
we-
Okay, but
do
now
we need to
need a
vote
motion
on
the
the-
first,
on the
page
first
two
one,
of the
though, too,
projects,
yeah.
please?
Okay, I don't have a motion prepared, but I will put them together. I move that the select board approve the use of ARPA funding in the amount of $677,393 pursuant to the memo from Finance Director to the Select Board dated October 21st, 2024.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Mary.
Yeah, thank you, Mary.
Sure.
It's excellent work. Order of layout for Cooper Hill Road, discussion regarding that.
Do we have to discuss it?
Town manager, do you mind teeing
Not
that
at all.
off?
So the explanation,
Is-
this was previously presented to the voters as Article 23 in the warrant for the March 9th, 2024 annual town meeting.
Yes.
At which time the Select Board and Finance Committee both unanimously recommended its approval. Town meeting approved Article 23 with a vote of 78 yes to 14 no, thereby meeting the requisite two-thirds for passage. The town is required by statute to acquire rights in Cooper Hill Road within 120 days from town meeting vote. Due to various issues, the street acceptance process was not completed by July, and we're going through the process again in order to bring it to the special town meeting on November 18th. On September 30th, this board voted its intent to lay out and forwarded to the planning board for their recommendation. On October 8th, 2024, the planning board, at a posted open meeting, voted unanimously to support and recommend that Cooper Hill Road become a public way. The next step is that the select board votes to adopt the order of layout on Cooper Hill Road, which will be filed with the town clerk and will also generate an article for the November 18th special town meeting, which we've already done. And attached here too, you have the as-built, the memo from the planning board, and the draft order of layout, and a proposed motion before you. You have
Randy-
to read the attached order in its entirety, which
Randy,
is
because-
where? Oh, right there, on the back page. Thank you. Yes, Amy?
Because this summary that
Thank
you
you,
just
Mary.
provided us will become part of the record, we didn't include the language that we had talked about and that I had provided you. It's not in here.
It's in the warrant.
It's going to be in the warrant.
Oh, it is in the warrant?
Okay.
Yeah. Yep, I put it in there that same night.
what language was that? Remind
The
me.
language, Fernando, is...
Oh, it's in the warrant.
Just clarifies
I'm
for
gonna show
future
you.
reference.
Oh, is that's what you mentioned last time? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, it
Okay,
just-
good.
It was included in there.
It was included in there.
It's
Okay.
as long as it's included, we need to memorialize that
And
this
it is.
roadway was built in accordance with
That's
the
right.
public road acceptance and no waivers were
Where the hell is it?
granted and all the things.
I remembered that comment, Emmy. Thank you.
Yep,
All right.
it is in there.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
good.
So it's
You'll
basically a
find
big do-over. Everything's already been
Everything's a
approved.
do-over,
and-
yep.
Yes.
Let's just,
So may I make a motion?
you may, yes.
I move that the Select Board adopt the order of layout of Cooper Hill Road as follows. Order of layout of Cooper Hill Road. Whereas the Select Board of the Town of Duxbury, acting pursuant to General Law, Chapter 82, Sections 21 through 24, have deemed that the common conveyance and necessity require the acceptance of Cooper Hill Road as a town way, hereby lays out Cooper Hill Road as a public way. All is shown on the plan referenced below. Whereas the boundaries of the layout of Cooper Hill Road are shown on a plan entitled, quote, "As-Built Plan for Cooper Hill Road in Duxbury, Mass," unquote, dated December 28, 2022, prepared by South Shore Survey Consultants, recorded with the Plymouth Registry of Deeds in Plan Book 66, Plan Number 1062, which plan was referred to the Planning Board, and which plan is hereby adopted as part of this order, and all land laying within the layout of Cooper Hill Road is hereby laid out as a public way. The aforementioned plan is hereby forwarded to the town clerk for filing, and the foregoing layout is hereby reported to the town for acceptance. Adopted October 21st, 2024, Town of Duxbury by its Select Board.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things. First, on the MBTA Communities info, I had a text from Rebecca earlier, our interim planner, saying that the public hearing was done and it went well, and she's going to be sending me the memo and the bylaw, or she's going to be sending the memo and the bylaw to town council with the revisions that occurred, and then she's going to apply for the pre-adoption meeting with EOHLC.
You say public hearing, I mean planning board, public hearing.
Yep, thank you. Yes.
That was tonight, right?
Yeah, it was
Yes, it was.
just before our meeting.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
concurrently with our meeting, yeah.
The other.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Were there revisions tonight based upon the public
Yeah,
hearing?
I think they had a couple of changes here and there. I don't know what they are, though, forgive me.
Well, any of those changes would be proposed as amendments on town meeting floor.
Unless we reopen the warrant, and that's what I'm going to recommend, because we do not recommend amending things from the floor.
Okay.
And reopening the warrant's too easy. Whereas amending, and Kent, we had a meeting with council today, and she does not recommend doing anything from the floor.
Okay.
It'll turn into a mess. The other update I had was Water Department notice of hydrant flushing the week of October 28th. The Duxbury Water Department will commence annual flushing on the water distribution system's low-pressure zone, which is the southeast section of town. If you go on the town's website, there's a map you can click on, and you can find out where that is. The activities will continue for several weeks, and will be done between the hours of 8 and 5, Monday through Friday. Additional updates will be posted on the Water Department website and a message board to the transfer station. This activity will cause varying degrees of discolored water and pressure fluctuations. Water users should check both hot and cold water before use, especially for laundering purposes. The flushing of water mains is a necessary function to improve water quality and maintenance to the water distribution system, and the discolored water that you may see is caused by iron and manganese that are common to groundwater and accumulate in the pipes over time. We apologize for any inconvenience this necessary work may cause. And that's from Mark Cloud, our Water and Sewer Superintendent. And that's my update.
What date was that again?
October 28th.
Rainey?
Yes, sir.
I know this board received a copy of it, but at our last joint meeting with the Finance Committee, we discussed how there was a letter that we sent to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities requesting a one-year extension.
Yep.
Would you mind providing to the public the response to that?
Yeah.
It's on the website.
It's on the town's website, as I had mentioned earlier. They basically denied it, but they also offered an avenue for us to have a discussion with them in terms of reviewing our proposed language, and that was what I was referring to earlier when I said that Rebecca was going to talk to them about having this pre-adoption meeting. So they denied the request, straight up.
It's, for anybody watching at home who's interested, the denial letter is set forth on the town's website, but specifically under boards and committees. The MBTA Communities Working Group has a page, and on that page, we posted very intentionally the denial letter.
Okay.
So it's available for all to see.
Yeah. You had mentioned that during open forum, didn't
Yep.
you?
Mhm.
Yeah, I thought so.
Well, the denial letter is unfortunate. I think the town put forward some very compelling reasons,
Agreed.
such as affordable housing and, environmental and financial impacts and all the, really important reasons why an extension should be granted. It does seem, again, punitive. It seems unreasonable that the state has denied this, and what's our recourse? It seems like there should be some.
Well, vote at town meeting, that's your recourse.
Well, I did notice that they relied considerably on the guidelines. And that is something that was a big concern by Milton, in their case with the SJC, whether those guidelines went too far. And to rely upon those guidelines to deny our request for a year that was made in good faith and for good faith bases almost entirely on those guidelines seems to me improper.
Agreed.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, related to the town manager, but not specifically part of the report, during open forum, there was a couple of references to a potential committee for the Powder Point Bridge reconstruction, and I think this is an appropriate time for me to voice my support for such a board or committee to be assembled forthwith.
When do you think we can get that on an agenda?
I'd hope to have it on this week, but a few other things got in the way.
It was a busy agenda.
So next week.
Next week, and could we, I mean, we can't, do we need to wait till next week to decide how many members and?
It's a good idea, because I'm trying to put together a charge to go with it.
Because it would be a task force, not an official
It'd be an
committee.
advisory committee, much like the Seawall Committee.
I think if we could just get an announcement out there that we're going to be seeking some people who are interested, that
Great
could be
point.
half the battle, so.
Perfect, thank you. Maybe the press could cover that, that if people are interested in applying to become members of what could be called a Powder Point Bridge Advisory Committee, they should send us a cover letter and resume and fill out a talent bank form. That would be a good idea. Send them to our office, and then we can move forward from there.
Those are typically groups of what, 7-ish?
Yeah, any more than that, they get weird.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
And we can, that seems manageable for our next agenda, hopefully.
Appreciate that, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Town Manager, thank you.
No problem.
Any other town manager requests for agenda items? We could send the emails.
Yep, call me, text me.
I think it's 5 minutes.
There's a list, I obviously didn't bring
Brain's
it.
gone.
Committee, we have an open space committee appointment.
I move the Duxbury Select Board appoint the following individual to the Open Space Committee. Michael McHugh, for a term expiring June 30, 2027.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The following boards and committees have 2 seats each. Alternative Energy Committee, the Coastal Resiliency Task Force. The following boards and committees have 1 seat available. The Duxbury Cultural Council, Economic Advisory Committee, Fiscal Advisory Committee, Highway Safety Committee, Municipal Commission on Disabilities, and the Nuclear Advisory Committee. If anyone is interested in volunteering on a board or committee, you're encouraged to fill out a talent bank form, which can be found on the town's website under the Forms and Documents tab.
All right, we have minutes. Executive session minutes and open
Just
session
open.
minutes. It's just on there.
Yep.
Open session minutes from October 10th, 2024.
If anybody has changes, I'm happy to make a motion. I move to approve the October 10, 2024 Select Board open session minutes as presented. Fernando to abstain.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I abstain.
Announcements.
We do have announcements. 2 announcements this evening. 1, in-person early voting will take place on the following dates and times. And as I mentioned at the outset of our meeting, I did it myself today, and it was very easy, and you get a nifty sticker at the end. Tuesday, October 22nd, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Wednesday, October 23rd, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Thursday, October 24th, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Friday, October 25th, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Saturday, October 26th, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Sunday, October 27th, no early voting. Monday, October 28th, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Tuesday, October 29th, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Wednesday, October 30th, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Thursday, October 31st, Halloween, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And finally, Friday, November 1st, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Note that all voting takes place at the Steel Building, 130 St. George Street. Our next announcement is that our next regularly scheduled Select Board meeting will be on Monday, October 28th, 2024, at, this says 6 o'clock, is that right?
Do we have executive session?
Yeah, sure.
Yes?
Probably.
Okay, so it's scheduled for 6 o'clock, not 6:30. 6 o'clock, Monday, October 28th, 2024, in the Muir Room, 6 p.m.
Oh,
Move to adjourn.
second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Was it
Excellent.
28th?